disciple someone, they can go do what you do, right? And that's what Jesus did to his disciples. Don and I were just, y'all can be seated if you like. Don and I was just talking about that this morning, and I said, I've been preaching on that some, about Jesus sent his disciples out and with nothing. And then when they come back, he said, did you lack anything? And they said, no. And I said, well, that's how the Lord spoke to me, that he taught me faith, how to walk in faith. And so I know that this is our desire in these end times. It's been prophesied so much, especially since Charlie Kirk's his name was murdered, that we should disciple. It's a strong word, to disciple. And so Andrew is one of our disciples, and we're so excited about him helping in his church in South Carolina and being a part of that ministry. And he ministered here on my birthday, and so we've asked him to speak this morning. And so, Andrew, come and just share with us what God has put on your heart, and we love you, buddy. Amen. It's been a long ways since he was a little guy that tall going around Rod Skeens asking for money. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not very loud. Well, let's see. Okay, we on? Cool. Well, first I want to thank you for the opportunity to preach here this morning. It's a little surreal being on this side of one of these meetings, so bear with me. Growing up and being a part of these meetings all of my life, I always thought it was kind of cool how for a while we had themes and then kind of realized that God was picking the themes anyway, so throughout the conference, there's always been a common thread, and this has kind of been the same. I just put this message together yesterday, and last night, Brother Donald Ray kind of preached half my sermon, so I guess I'll just preach the other half, and I'll call it a day. But over this week, we've heard some great sermons and teachings, and I may not have anything new to teach, but sometimes it's good to be reminded of the things that we've known. And God has kind of been dealing with me on this particular subject over really the past couple weeks, and it kind of fits right in with what we've already heard. This morning I want to speak on what I believe to be our greatest commodity. We've seen through this week that if we're following Christ, then we can expect to be provided for, to have good health, and provision and protection. We've seen how to have faith and believe when we don't have these things sometimes. But good health, money, tools, equipment, they're all necessary for fulfilling the Great Commission that Jesus has given each and every one of us. But of all these things, I think that the greatest commodity that God gives us is our time. The Bible, it talks a lot about time. Time is one of the core building blocks of reality, really. You got space, matter, and time. Matter, as we know, is the material things, and space is where we would put these things. Time is when we would experience them. And God, in His infinite power, created all these things at once with just a word. If we're made in the image of God, then it only makes sense. It's only logical that our words would also have power. Just like Brother Frank had taught yesterday, your words have power. But we see in Genesis 1:1, God created reality all at once. In the beginning, time, God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter, all at once. So we see that time, it's really the very first thing that God talked about. In the entirety of the Bible, the very first thing He spoke about was time. It's a very important thing to God. Now, God because he created time, is unfazed by it. It doesn't bother him, but for us, he finds it important. So this morning, I want to go over just a few things that I feel God has been showing me about time and dealing with me about. The first is to remember that we are stewards. 1 Corinthians 10:26 tells us, the whole earth is the Lord's and everything that is in it. Just to preface, I like reading out of the Amplified, so my verses are going to be out of that translation. But it's all God's. Everything belongs to God. He simply entrusted us with what we've got. Our money, our possessions, our callings, relationships, our students, our mentors, our time. It all belongs to God. And we're called to take care of it until he comes back. This means we have to be responsible for how we use our gifts, our resources, our talents, and our time. If it all belongs to God, then we have the responsibility to be obedient to whatever he wants us to do. A lot of the time, things will change. If we're moving, if we're growing, if we're following the will of God for our life, then change is inevitable. It's a natural part of life. It's to be expected. Sometimes it's not exactly comfortable or wanted, but it's still necessary. Science will actually tell us that if something isn't growing and if there's no change to whatever it is, then it's either dead or dying. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my faith to be described like that. It's essential to life. But this is something that makes God so awesome. Hebrews 13:8 tells us Jesus Christ is eternally changeless, always the same yesterday, today, and forever. So while things around us might change and we might change, we're expected to change. What we do might change, but our God is ever faithful and unchanging. His will for your life is the same. He has good plans for us. Our calling doesn't change either. It's really important, though, to understand this. What we do might change, but who God has called us to be doesn't. Our occupation might change. Our roles might change. Who we influence and impact might change, but the person that God has called you to be never changes. He calls us to live in love, in power, in generosity. He calls us to walk in the fruits of the Spirit and to operate in the gifts of the Spirit. We have to be good stewards of what God has given us. We can't waste our time trying to operate in the gifts of the Spirit without taking the time to hone the fruits. The gifts of the Spirit, when used without the fruits of the Spirit, become ineffective. And really, they can become weapons. To use discernment without love can make you judgmental and tear someone down because you can read them and know what will hurt them. To teach or to give without humility will make you arrogant. To prophesy without joy will just make you depressing. Because sometimes the things that we have to say aren't necessarily happy news. But if you don't have the joy of the Lord, then it just becomes doom and gloom all the way around. We have to use our time wisely to hone the fruits of the Spirit before we can effectively operate in the gifts of the Spirit. I had this thought a while back. I wonder really just how much better off would the world and the church be if we as Christians were to chase after the fruits of the Spirit with the same passion that we tend to chase the gifts. All of this, though, it takes time, and it takes faith. It can really take faith to continue to trust God. If what He has called us to do changes, it can really take faith. Much like what Brother Charlie had mentioned on the first night, to take that leap of faith. Sometimes, though, it also takes just as much faith, or maybe even more, to stay put, to be still and know. The grand gestures are sometimes you just slowing down and not getting ahead of God or behind God. If He has called you into a different season of life, it can take some faith, and it can take time to adjust. Sometimes things don't just click automatically. It can be a process. That's kind of how God tends to work, is in processes. And if you really want to operate like He wants you to, it's going to take faith and it's going to take time. It does get easier, though, when you realize that Jesus is Lord and we're simply the stewards. It all belongs to Him and we're just called to take care of it. We don't have to have all the answers and we don't have to have the whole plan. It's nice to know sometimes. We like to have the whole plan, but that's oftentimes not what's required. All we really need is faith enough to obey. It reminds me of a story that I had heard. This guy had a restaurant, and it wasn't doing well. And so he decided that he was going to quit worrying about it and give it to God. That night, about 3 a.m, he got woke up. The fire department called, said his restaurant was on fire. And so he shows up to the restaurant, and the whole thing had burned to the ground. He busts out laughing. And the fire department looks at him and goes, what are you laughing about? And he goes, I don't care about that. That's God's restaurant. It's burning down. He'll take care of it. He gave it to God, and He took care of it. But Solomon wrote about this in Ecclesiastes in 3. He says, there is a season, a time appointed for everything, and a time for every delight and event or purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. There's a time to search and a time to give up as lost. A time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together. A time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What profit is there for the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the task which God has given to the sons of men with which to occupy themselves. He has made everything beautiful and appropriate in its time. He has also planted eternity, a sense of divine purpose in the human heart, a mysterious longing which nothing under the sun can satisfy except God. Yet men cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. So if God is the one who sets the plan, then it makes sense that all we have to do is follow it. Things can change, seasons can change, but in the change, we have to have faith. Isaiah 48 tells us, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. So when things change, we cling to the word. Go to the word and see what God says about you and the circumstances that you see around you. You want guidance, you want to hear from God? Chances are He's already wrote about it. We have a tendency to pray and to ask God for things and then get mad when we don't hear nothing, when in reality He's already wrote it down. We just hadn't had the mind to crack the book open and read it. Your life will see change. Your roles might change. The world around us is definitely changing. We go to the Word. We don't waste time worrying. That actually brings me to my next point. Don't be wasteful. If we are stewards, we have to handle everything given from God responsibly. And we can't be wasting time. You shouldn't be wasting the money that He gives you. You shouldn't be wasting the resources that He gives you or the people. Just the same, He's given you a set amount of time. Don't waste it by worrying. Jesus tells us quite often not to worry. It's pretty much a direct command. Not only from Jesus, but we see it all through the Bible, Old and New Testament. There are so many different instances where we see, don't be afraid, don't worry, fear not, and whatever else. All the same message, don't do it. So with this in mind, we see that worry is in fact sinful. Worry is faith that God won't do what He said He would. And how many of us know that God is not a man that He should lie? Worry really, in and of itself, is practical atheism. It is the belief that God will not show up and take care of us the way He said He would. I heard a pastor once say, worry is like a rocking chair. It'll give you something to do, but you won't get anywhere. Worry will make you weak, ineffective, and unable to make sound decisions. Isn't it kind of odd that right when you need to be strong, right when you need to have a clear mind, right when you need to think about going to God, worry seeps in? The enemy will send worry to steal your faith and your joy. And don't we know that the joy of the Lord is our strength? Don't we know that we need faith to operate like God has called us to? When Satan sends fear to your heart, answer it with faith. I've noticed that oftentimes the very thing that Satan is trying to steal from us is the very answer to whatever attack it is. When we need to be loving, oftentimes he sends judgment. When we need to be generous, he sends greed. When we need to be gentle, he'll send anger. What's the answer to these? Exactly the thing he is after. When we feel like being judgmental, answer in love. When we're feeling a little stingy, just like what Brother Charlie said, give more. If we're angry with somebody, be gentle. When you're feeling afraid and worried, you stand on faith. Don't waste time by worrying or falling into despair. Don't waste time in depression looking back how things might have used to been. We're in the present. Our God is a God of now. He said in Isaiah, behold, I am doing a new thing. Not, I did a new thing or I'm going to do a new thing. Right here and now, I am doing a new thing in the present. Yes, God might have worked mightily in the past, and yes, he has great plans for your future. But none of that means anything if you waste your present. What happened yesterday is yesterday. And what might happen tomorrow hadn't come yet. That's something that I've noticed. Tomorrow is always on the way, but it never actually gets here. It's always today. Our God is a God of now. Jesus even talked about this, Matthew 6:27. And who of you, by worrying, can add 1 hour to the length of his life? We can always make more money. We can always gather more resources. We can always meet more people. But we're not going to make more time. And we're definitely not making time by worrying. Your worrying isn't working. It isn't making God move, and it isn't giving you any more time. In fact, worry is the thief of time. Worry is interest paid on trouble that will most likely never come. I think actually it was Papa, I'd heard him say once, he says, 99% of the things that you worry about are never going to happen. And our God is more than enough to handle 1%. So it might be better use of your time to think and inventory all the problems and situations you find yourself in and break them down into 2 categories. Are they something that I can control, or are they something that I can't control? If you can control them, then do something about it and quit worrying. It's in your ability to fix it. Fix the problem. In the same amount of time that it took to worry, you could have already had it done. And if you can't control it, then there's nothing to worry about because there's nothing you can do anyway. There ain't no point in wasting time. We know who holds the future, and if he was faithful in the past, then we know that he'll be faithful in the future. And if we want more evidence, we can see what he's doing right now in the present. Most of the time, all we have to do is look past the worry to see God. Because God is so much bigger than the worry, but the worry's so much closer, we can't see nothing else. We know he'll be faithful in the future. Later on in Matthew 6, in verse 34, Jesus said, so do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You got enough to deal with today without borrowing time from tomorrow, especially when tomorrow's not even promised. So why worry about something that you don't even know is going to happen? That brings me to my last point. We need to be effective. Use the time that God has given you effectively. You know, we've talked a lot about the ones who have gone on before us. And, you know, here on earth, it's kind of sad to think about. I miss a lot of the guys that have gone on. I grew up with them. It's almost like family. They've always been in my life, but their mission was completed. The call that God had on their life was done. And I have no doubt that every one of them was welcomed by the Father with congratulations on a race well ran. But for those of us who remain, God still has a mission for us. There's still something left to do. Our race ain't over yet. The race might not look like it used to, but we've still got some racing to do. There's always something to do as long as you've got breath in your lungs. Are things going well? Praise. Prepare. Peacetime is prep time. Are things not going well? Praise. Pray and walk by faith. You know that God is either going to deliver you out of it or walk you through it. But if you notice something that's similar between both of these situations, whether things are good or not, we have time to praise. David said in Psalms, "Let everything that has breath praise the Lord." We got breath in our lungs, that means we have time to praise. Did you know a group of scientists were studying the effects of different emotions on the brain? And they found that feelings of stress, anger, and fear cannot exist in the brain at the same time as feelings of gratitude. If you are praising God, fear has no room in your mind. So spend your time wisely. This is why God tells us to pray without ceasing, to praise in all things, because whatever stress or anxiety we're feeling cannot co-inhabit the same space as gratitude. Spend your time wisely. Prioritize yourself better. It can be easy to get busy and let some things fall by the wayside, especially things that are actually pretty important. Going to spend time in your word, stopping to praise for something. It can get really easy to put it off and think, well, I'll get to that later. I can't deal with that right now. You actually can't afford not to. When you start doing stuff like that, that's when compromise sets in. And that's when we see the enemy slither into our lives. Take a look at what is occupying most of your time. Where your treasure is, there is where your God is. Money is valuable, but time is even more so. Like I said earlier, you can always make more money. You can always gather more of that, but you can't make more time. Whatever you're spending most of your time doing and thinking about, that is your God. It might be good to take inventory of your thoughts and see what is occupying them the most. Take every thought captive and hold it up against the Word to see if it is something that is beneficial or something that is more of a hindrance. Is it of the Word or is it of the world? When you take the time to put God first above all else, everything else will fall into place. Even in ministry. I'm not in full-time ministry. I don't have a church or a congregation, but in the work that I do with the church and with the youth group that I'm a part of, it can get easy sometimes to get caught up in the ministry. It can be easy sometimes to mistake yourself and make ministry your God. We can't be too caught up in working for God that the work becomes our God. I tell my students all the time, God doesn't ask us politely to make Him priority of our lives. He demands it. He is either Lord of all in your life or He is not Lord at all. He said in Exodus, "I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no others before me." This isn't a polite request. Oh, if you have some time, maybe work me into your busy schedule. He said, "I am the Lord your God, and you will have none before me." You're either all in or not in at all. There is no black and white and gray and weird, tough decisions. It's either of God or it's not. You're either with God or you're not. And Jesus said that Himself. He said, "You are either for me or you are against me." The common thing that I hear every so often is, well, I'm kind of on the fence Well, you have God's side and you have Satan's. And as it happens, Satan owns the fence too. But when you reprioritize your life to where God is first, everything else will fall into place. I tell them sometimes, when you do this, sometimes things might fall with a crash. You might not know how some things are going to work out, and some things may fall off altogether. That's okay because you didn't need them anyway. But everything else will find its place once God is in the right place in your heart. First place. Second place is just first loser. and God deserves to be first in your life. But anyway, I hope y'all have got something out of this morning. If nothing else, I did. But I want to thank Papa again for letting me preach this morning and having me up here. It's a huge honor, and I really appreciate it. But I'll turn it back over to him now.